Welcome back, everybody. That's good stuff. We are continuing our journey through The Last of Us. Ellie and Joel teaming up as the dynamic duo to fight the Joker.
What?
Okay, I don't know. I'm
What?
mixing up my shows. So this week, this episode, we are going to talk about episodes 4, episodes 5, and episode 6. So episode 4 is called Please Hold to My Hand. It's a very confusing title for me, but I don't know. Maybe it means something.
Is that really the name of it? Please hold to my hand.
Yeah.
How weird.
I'm gonna double check this.
We
So
don't
this-
trust you.
This episode was on February 5th, and it actually scored the highest viewers of all the episodes so
Interesting.
far.
Probably
Very
the hype
interesting.
after the third episode.
Yeah,
It was like,
that's
oh
what I'm
my
thinking.
god, the world's greatest episode of television ever happened.
And people are like, I gotta check this show out. And they got a real short one, which was
Yeah.
okay. For me, this was more like it. This is getting the show back on track. It was short and sweet, not too much cringe stuff. I think this is the one where Ellie smells a gun. That was a little weird. And then you have the whole Catherine character debate, which I think we'll save for episode 5 because she's more
Yeah.
important to that episode. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. A little short, but it got me back in the direction I wanted the show to go in after the detour that was episode 3. So let's open it up for discussion. What do you guys think of episode 4? We'll go. Well, Thomas hasn't talked on this show yet, so we'll hear his Last of Us opinion. Go ahead, Thomas.
Episode 4, that's the one where they meet Henry and
The very end of the episode,
very
yeah.
end of
end.
the episode, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the one where they ride into Kansas City and then the ambushers shoot their truck up and they hit the laundromat.
I feel like this is just like the cutscene between gameplay. Like, I mean, it kind of is really. It seemed very, hey, we have to have this to get our characters to this next point, and here we go. It was all right. Not like my favorite episode, but it was. I mean, it moved the characters right along, and I think Joe said it got everybody back on the zombie track, which I liked the third episode a lot. But I didn't like that they took away from the main story, which is supposed to be Joel and Ellie. Even though I did like the character of Bill being honestly better than the game. But it actually coming back to Joel and Ellie was kind of refreshing. But yeah, it was just very short. Like I said, it felt like a cutscene. It's like, all right, cool. Now the cutscene's done, and now we get to the gameplay. Let's go. But I think like the biggest part of the episode for me is when they go into, where are they at? Is it
Kansas City.
Kansas City,
Okay,
yeah.
Kansas City. And Joel has to kill that guy in front of Ellie, basically, where she has her back turned. But that whole like, oh yeah, like we have medicine, we can help you. My mom's just down the street, and then he like kills her or kills him. And then down the street when they bring the body back, it's like his mom's right there. I'm like, oh, I guess that's all right. But I don't know. Not my favorite episode, but it got things back on track. So
Yeah, that was probably the best scene of the episode. Was the one you're talking about in the laundromat?
Andre Matt, that's where it was at.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that War of the World scene where he like has to kill what's his name?
Tim Robbins?
Watched that movie
Yeah.
yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene.
I forgot that he did that too. I was like, oh, that went dark.
It gets real dark there.
I had
Yeah.
to get off tangent. That was very unsettling, that scene when I was younger.
Yeah. But
All right, who wants to go next? Michael, you want to chime in?
I will chime in, Sir Joseph. Yeah, this is definitely, I agree with you guys 100%. This was a much needed episode because like we talked about, like different directions they took with the beginning of the show and telling different stories and everything was really cool and nice. But it's like this show is about Joel and Ellie, and like we needed. This is the last episode because I've talked about with the first couple episodes that I had issues with Ellie's dialogue and how they were trying to force feed us this kind of trying to play up her toughness and like way too snarky. They were doing it. They were overloading it, in my opinion. And the first half of this episode is that way. And then like past that first half and like through the episodes that we've seen so far through 6, I'm like, they're nailing it in my opinion now. Like they're holding silent moments. They're letting them walk and travel, which that's spoiler talk, but that doesn't really matter. But like, so finally, like when it hit that, because the beginning of this episode has a few moments where I'm like, oh, that's really funny. And I'm like, okay, you need to sit a little bit more of the silence in this episode, in the beginning of it at least. But then they finally hit, and that's what I was talking about when we were talking about the beginning, because we had a discussion about Ellie in the beginning, Thomas, about her. Because they were talking about how she's just trying to act all tough, and I'm like, yeah, I think they overplayed it too much, but they're trying to make that big point of, hey, she's just trying to pretend like she's tough. She's not actually. And they mix a few things in the game. So that part where she ends up shooting Brian, I think his name was, that was attacking Joel and choking him out. That's like a mixture of two parts of the game. So that didn't actually happen. That scene where they do crash it's not a laundromat. It's like a convenience store or something like that in the game, but it's like almost 1 for 1. Like that guy in the roads trying to yell like, hey, stop, whatever. Like it's really, really accurate, except for they're in Pittsburgh, I think, instead of Kansas City. But the only reason why they did that was because they were in Canada and it was easier to recreate Kansas City. Yeah, that's what stands out to me in this episode is that scene was the only real do not growl at me. The only real kind of standout part of this.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's really good because it was what we needed. We needed that kind of showing, hey, you're like her showing it, not people telling her she's a kid, but her showing that she's, not really mentally prepared for this and how much weight it had on her. And like, I loved that thing where, I mean, just her like holding the gun and like freaking out. And the fact that we finally, because that before then, Joel didn't know she had the gun. So that kind of like, she pulls out the knife first out of her backpack. Like, I'll go stab him. She's like, wait, I have this. I can use this now. And like that kind of choice she has to make. And I don't know. I thought they did a really good job. The weird like hole in the wall situation where he's like, go back through there and wait. And I don't know why. Like a few people I'd heard on podcasts talking about that they were waiting for the gunshot, and that was me too. But that Brian guy, you saw Joel pick up his knife before, and I was like, oh, duh, he's gonna stab him because why waste a bullet? But I thought that scene was just done really well. And the fact that they like had him, throw out, because normally, in some action movies, you'd be like, oh, don't, please, no, stab. But he's like, I'm Brian. What's your name? Like, my mom's over there. Like all that kind of like throwing out, trying to save. Like that's how it would be. Really, really realistic in that sense of doing anything to try and stall or save time. And like the kind of just even not overkill, but even laying more on it. He's like, I can't move my legs. What happened? She shot him in the spine and paralyzed him. And it's like, holy cow. It just, they unloaded on just that darkness on such a, not simple, but you know what I mean? It's not like this big action moment, but I thought it was really well done. But apart from that, the episode was just, getting from point A to point B, but also growing the characters in my opinion. So I feel like it was needed, but I agree. It's not one of my favorites for sure. What's up, Thomas?
Is it weird that I don't really feel a lot of sympathy for the guys, like at all?
For the guy he killed?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, nah.
I mean, no, it's not weird because I mean, what he's doing, but I feel like
because they literally laid a trap for the guys. Like,
it's like he knew what he was doing. There was that kind of like put yourself in their shoes situation where like even like Joel said, I've done that stuff before. I've been on the other side and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I didn't feel bad for him, but it's also like, good Lord, man, it's just like an unpleasant situation to be even in their shoes and quote unquote needing to do stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really good, really, really well done episode, and then culminating in the kind of like the freaking adding the joke book is straight out of the video game that she gets, and she's like reading the jokes out and everything. And that last joke, I couldn't help it. I was laughing so hard when
That's a pretty good joke.
He's like, that's so stupid. He's just like, he can't stop laughing on the cushions. I thought it was great. So I enjoyed this episode, but yeah, it's just kind of like it's a need to have episode, but not one of the greats. So I'll throw it. We can wherever you want to throw it.
Alex, I was going to ask you, do you believe that little scrawny guy could hold Joel down during that scene? Because I kind of couldn't believe it, but what do you think?
That's a good point. But in the later episodes, in this latest one, he does talk about how that he's older and he can't fend off people as much. But
how old did he say he was? 50?
He's 56.
56, okay.
And also, to play devil's advocate, he is 56, old and tired, and he did just get in a car wreck.
And have to get up and immediately shoot people. But it did seem like, he's pushing it onto his throat, but I feel like, just maybe roll a little bit,
We lost Alex. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Is your laptop plugged in?
It's not. But it has plenty of batteries, so.
Yeah, well.
Plug it in anyway.
It's just warning you.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah, he was like, I thought I looked up at me and I was like, I'm the only one moving. Oh no. And then you guys started moving.
Let's go to Jared so I can plug this in and then we'll hop to me.
Okay.
That really messed me up. I had my thoughts compiled and then we went to Alex, so I threw them all out. Yeah, this one is the last of the I Don't Care episodes. This one I cannot, every time, just as like we're going to talk about this episode, I cannot remember it. It is very, it's kind of bland to me. It's very horror movie kind of, like Michael was saying about like how he's trying to sympathize with Ellie and Joel. That's kind of something I've seen before. So it's not very, there was one bit of information that I can't talk about now. I'll have to wait till the third episode to mention it, but it did give some information that I kind of enjoyed. It's cool seeing zombie Kansas City. But yeah, honestly, I can't remember this episode besides the scene in the laundromat. Did you say?
Yeah.
I can't remember it beyond that. So
what did you think about the lady leader that's like got the weak voice?
Joseph, like, I didn't know who it was like initially, and Joseph was like, oh, it's the chick from 2.5 Men. And I was like, oh my God, it is her. And then like a lot of you guys have put up like good arguments, but her voice I can't take seriously. It's just like this sweet lady voice interrogating people or threatening people.
Well, she's like, I'm in charge. I'm like, you don't sound in charge.
Well, even like in the next episode, she's saying some like pretty brutal things, but I'm just like, oh,
cute,
so sweet.
Where's Charlie Sheen?
What was that? When we were watching, is it Attack the Block? Is that the one with the English gangsters? Like those kids are hoodlums who are like, all right, give your money. I'm like, I can't take you seriously. I'm not threatened at all.
Exactly. If you're not hitting the tone right for me, like, and I'm not taking you seriously, there's no redeeming it. Like for the next episode she's in, she's the same thing. I'm like, yeah, you're saying tough things and stuff like that, but I just can't take you seriously. I'm sorry. And not that she's a bad actor. It's just like her voice is so like happy and like soft. I'm just like, there's no way you're mean. There's no way in life you're mean. But
a lot of people have pointed out that like when society breaks down, it becomes survival of the fittest. So it's kind of weird that you would have like this soccer mom leading some kind of like militia. And you do have to take it with like a little, it's Hollywood. This is not how it would be.
Well, even in the next episode, she mentions how like her brother was like the greatest in how he would like tell her, in this room, you're safe and stuff like that. So I'm like, for you to get hard enough or like cold-hearted enough to start leading like a militia or whatever, it's not there for me, and it didn't come off like a tough person. I don't know. That's just me. I know that for you guys it probably worked, but yeah.
So Alex, did you want to add anything to the episode 4 before we go to 5?
Yes, I honestly completely agree with you, Jared. Like, well, I have a whole thing about the show which we've kind of talked about already, where I don't really like leaving Joel and Ellie, and maybe I have a bias going in because you play the whole game from their perspective, so it's like, but I literally think, I get it, I guess you don't want a complete, I mean, I honestly want just like as close as possible as a remake, because I think that it's such a special story, and so any deviation is like Thomas was saying, that third episode's really great, but it's not what I want from the show. Anyway, so, but like, I literally think it makes the show way less scary. Like, I can't remember who I was telling this, but like them showing, and I don't mean just her, like, I mean showing anybody else, like almost like humanizing anybody else. It makes the game way less scary for me, because like the game, you are at least the whole first game, you are with them the entire time, and you'll hear people and you're like, I have no clue who it is, how many of them there are, what their plan is. And so when the show shows these people and kind of what they're doing, it makes it takes out all the tension for me.
Yeah.
Because man, I can just picture it being like the game where you just hear people and you're just like, what? Who are these people? Like, because as an audience member, you would have all the questions they have. So that's a personal nitpick. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just what I would prefer.
I think we agree with you though.
Yeah, and you haven't played the game, so that's true. But I agree with you, Jared. Like, it's funny because everyone I've talked to about this actress, they all have a different touchstone for her. Like, you mentioned 2.5 Men. Michael, what did you say?
Psych.
Yeah, she's in Psych. I didn't even remember her in Psych.
Who is she playing Psych?
She's the episode whenever the two fashion people they kill each other. It's like the husband and wife, and she's the assistant that everyone expects. But they're like, Sean's like, she's too sweet. There's no way she could do this. But all the evidence points to her. But he's like, there's literally no way.
Okay.
That's funny. And I always think of her as Sweet Home Alabama. If you've seen that movie, she's like that lady in the bar that like sees Reese Witherspoon's engagement ring, and she's like, "Oh my God, Jack, look at the size of that thing." I always think of that line every time I see her. Anyway, but yeah, I totally agree with you, Jared. I think that she could have worked because with someone, yeah, she's meek, but okay, her voice is meek. She doesn't seem that way, so it could be really cool if you actually show it. Like, sure, she shoots her guy that delivered her or whatever. Whoop-de-doo. Anyone could pull a trigger. Like, I want to see her go like feral on someone or so. I don't know. Just something that would show you her like, oh yeah, this chick's crazy, and that's how she is gained
Have
control.
her, like, more charismatic than what she was, because like, I'm sorry, about 20 minutes of listening to her, I'm like, I would not follow you anywhere.
Yeah.
Especially in a post-apocalyptic era. I'm like,
there's got to
I'd
be
probably
a
shoot you myself.
reason. There's got to be a reason she's the leader more than
Yeah.
just it's her brother was.
Yeah.
She's got to have like some kind of information or something that separates her from the rest. So we go into episode 5, which is called Endure and Survive. For me, this was the best. This has been the best episode of the show so far. And because of the reasons like Alex was talking about, we get new characters, but it's Joel and Ellie with them. We do get a little bit of flashback in the beginning, but it catches up real fast. We don't linger on them. I like that it seemed like the most realistic. Like, this is what would happen. You would team up with people to get past obstacles in this kind of apocalypse they're in. Ironically enough, this has been the lowest rated or lowest watched episode. I don't have episode 6's numbers yet, but this one has been the lowest so far. I'm guessing that's the reason Super Bowl. That was the Super Bowl week.
Good
And it was
point.
like different. So I doubt a lot of people knew that it actually moved to Friday.
Yeah, so there was a lot going against this episode, but for me, it was the best episode. It was a little self-contained story, and the ending is super dark, but I liked it. So for me, it told a good story from beginning to end. And I'll let you guys expand on it. So why don't we go the other way around this time? And Jerry, why don't you start first?
So I really like this episode. This is the first episode where I've been like, okay, I see what you're doing, Last of Us. Like, I see you can be a good show.
Mhm.
Not that I've disliked it. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, I'm in. I would say most of the episode is pretty good, and then the last 15 minutes were great. The last scenes in the hotel room with like Henry and his brother, just great. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was like good horror. I thought it was a good like zombie premise, like,
Mhm.
and they got the emotions of someone that would be in that situation really well. Like, if someone you love did get turned, it's just like, it's over, like you lost kind of feeling.
Mhm.
So I really love those last 15 minutes. The episode as a whole, we still had this lady that I can't take seriously, but there's a lot of cool set pieces like when they get towards that house and they like Joel goes in behind and he tells that dude, you don't have to do this, and it's just like this old dude, and then I just like seeing Joel like, you don't have to do this, like I'm giving you an out, just let us go, and then he's like the old man, slow as heck, but he's still trying, and
It's like, I still got it.
don't talk to me that way, sonny. And then but no, I did like Ellie's interactions with Henry's brother. I forget his name, but
Sam.
Sam.
Sam. I didn't like seeing two kids being kids in the
Yeah.
apocalypse, and actually see them like play and like read together. That was sweet. And then this is the first episode where I liked Ellie a lot, because her last interactions with Sam in the hotel room, and just like how devastated she was that that he got bit, and like the whole ending with him and how much it affected her, and like how you see how this is going to affect her later on in the story. I just thought that was great. So I thought this episode was good, and then the last 15 minutes are great.
Nice.
I'm gonna see what Thomas thinks about it.
I like this one. Can't stand. What is her character's name?
Catherine.
Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Catherine.
Something like
We're gonna call her Kathy.
That fits more.
I couldn't stand her in this episode. I was like, when she got eaten by those tiny children, I was like, I'm actually pretty glad that you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny too.
Yeah. Well, it's just like her whole weird rant about trying to change fate, about your brother. Like, why did you get cancer meds for your brother? I'm just like, because he's my brother and he has cancer, you like horrible person. And it's just, I don't know, like her revenge plot about like trying to get revenge for her brother, but then I can't. It's like, the reason I'm going to kill the kids is because he's related to you. I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know, like you have no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and I'm not sad that you're dead. So I did appreciate that dude getting torn in half by the bloater, just like in the game, which I thought was kind of cool. Also, I forgot to mention that guy, the second in command, who has a glorious beard. I'm kind of envious of that beard, I'm not gonna lie.
Sergeant Santa.
Yeah. I did like the interactions between Joel and Henry. These two guys that are basically have the same parallels of like trying to protect someone they love, but they kind of go the opposite way of, Joe being a rogue and doing all this stuff on his own, and then Henry complying with the government to help his brother. And then in the end, they meet together, and they actually like, we're very similar, and we actually get along together, and I understand what you're going through. And that makes it all the more tragic when Henry has to kill Sam because he's infected. Because I think Joel sees himself in Henry a lot. And so the fact that he put a gun to his head and Joel hasn't yet, I think that kind of affects Joel a bit more in later episode that we're probably going to talk about. But yeah, this was a cool episode. I did like that we actually got to have zombies again, which was awesome. Because, I like character development and everything else, but this is a zombie show. It's about time we have some zombies, and there's a lot of zombies in this show or this episode. So that was kind of cool. Especially when when the car that they crashed into that house just like sank in, I was just like, what's going on? And then you just like hear like the scuttling of them, and just the horde comes out, and that's just terrifying.
Yeah, that was cool.
But that was something I also had like a problem with her, is that she leads all these men that they've liberated, like KC, right? Like, yeah, liberated. And then she takes basically her entire army out to hunt this one kid, and they all die. I'm like, well, I guess KC is now the infected place now because he just killed everybody.
Oh, one nitpick. So there's a point where they're like, there's a semicircle of the army, and then a bunch of the zombies. They're all shooting in the center of the circle. It's like that's
No.
someone's gonna get shot.
It's like what is it? Starship Troopers when they're all shooting the bugs. They're all shooting like at each other. It's like,
So I'm gonna ask you. I'll ask Michael. Is this Sam and Henry characters? Are they in the game?
Yeah, I was gonna give a little backstory to that. So start off, I actually am with the Kathleen character. I understand the argument against it, but I find it actually that was very interesting to bring that kind of an idea of a character of someone who was so sweet that was like put in suspicion, as far-fetched as it may be for her to be, to be followed and everything. But I thought they did a good job with that conversation in her brother's room, where the guy with the glorious beard, as Thomas mentioned, which is, I realized hadn't got a chance to tell you guys, he actually plays Tommy in the video game. So he plays Joel's brother. He's the voice actor. I really, really like the line, because the line that sealed the deal for it. Because when I first saw her, I was like, oh, that's very strange. You are like this, gonna make a pot of tea and talk about it kind of lady. But that line at the end, whenever because they all revered her brother and everything, and like she's hell bent on saving him. But he was like, whenever, because the whole 2 episodes, you kind of think that he's questioning her the whole time, like, I don't know if we should do that. I don't know. But then it hits that point in that bedroom where he's like, your brother was a great man and we all loved him, but he didn't change a thing. It's like basically like you were the one that actually made change. And I liked the backstory of this. I know Alex was talking about how fearful, or how much fear more ensues whenever like you don't know who these people are and what's going on. But I really like the backstory of like learning that Kansas City was only like liberated like 2 weeks before this actually happened, and like they had just recently taken over power and trying to deal with this whole situation. And so Henry and Sam's character come in the game where you just kind of come across them and they say they got lost or separated from their group. You don't know anything past that. And it's a hilarious story, because I listened to the Troy Baker podcast where he interviews the 2 co-writers, Neil, the original creator, and Craig. And Craig calls Neil up one day. So it's not in the game. And so he calls Neil up one day and he's like, so I have an idea. What if we make Sam deaf? And Neil's reaction was, you mother effer. It's like, why did I not think of that when I made this game? So, and that's a change I absolutely love, because it adds so much, like, just the quiet we needed in this game, but also like the emotional tension. And so how he got this kid, he put out, we need a black kid this age, like deaf, and preferably, really fluent in sign language, or I guess there's a black sign language. I didn't know there were 2 different versions. And couldn't find anyone. He was like, we got nothing. So he put his email address on Twitter. It was like, hey, anyone does this. He got 5 responses on Twitter from everyone in the freaking world. And it was this kid who had never been in any films. I'm assuming he did like play acting maybe, but so this kid just came out of nowhere and was incredible. Everyone freaking loved him, and he did a great job. And so that kind of like bringing that emotion without speaking, I felt brought so much more weight to this story, because it is very, very similar. When you hit the end of this episode, it's almost scene for scene, except for this. Ellie doesn't find out that he's bitten, or they don't show Ellie finds out. They're in the room, and then Joel and Sam are talking outside, and then they all wake up, and then they burst out the door like in the show. But you don't see like that interaction with him and Ellie. They do have an interaction, but it doesn't go so far as to where he tells her he's bitten or whatever, and she doesn't try the blood thing, which is apparently a controversial thing. I liked the blood thing because it made her.
I liked it too.
It made her seem childish in this like desperate attempt of wanting to, like, maybe. I mean, who the heck knows? Like, why not try it?
Yeah.
But to rewind a bit back, I liked the Kansas City back history we got. I did like Kathleen character, but I totally understand your guys' arguments against it. I just thought it was an interesting change. But this episode, I forgot to put it at the top. Like, I think this episode, 100% agree with Joseph. It's my favorite by far. It is incredible. We hit that point where, because in the game it's daytime, and they all that same block is there, but the sniper actually has a few guys you're fighting with it. So it's very similar, but just changed a few things. And so he goes, and like Jared said, he went and tried to convince the old guy to do it. And it was interesting perspective of the writers. They saw it through the eyes of the sense of that old man was done and tired. Like, he wanted someone to take him out, which I didn't pick that up, but that's how
not at all.
Yeah.
that's how they were thinking it. They were like, this guy wanted wanted Joel to do it. I was like, that's an interesting take, but not how I read it.
That
But
sounds really stupid to me.
I
Yeah.
think it is kind
because he's like this blind guy that's like even Joel says, he's like, this guy can't hit anything. He's like, he sucks. He's just stuck out here. He's like, it was very how they worded it better than I'm wording it, but still I didn't think of it that way. But whenever like I had seen the picture of the the hand coming out of the fire. But like the production quality and how well this was done, and like even them describing the set, he was like, the director was like, I've never done anything this complicated in my life filming. Just like all of that. He said we had hundreds of extras and all these people in makeup and everything. Like it literally hit that point in the show and my jaw dropped. I was watching, I was like, oh my gosh. It was so well done in my opinion. It brought a lot of tension and just like, because I'm like, I know where this episode goes. I know where Henry and Sam need to end up with Joel and Ellie. Why are they in the middle of the cul-de-sac with all these people sitting there? I was like, what is going to happen? Like all of that was different. So like, yeah. So in the game, they're coming down the road and then just a few infected come and they end up getting in the building. There's not this whole thing and it's during daytime. So it's not as scary, but I thought, this episode was so freaking well done. And the end of it, excuse me. The end of it is almost, like I said, scene for scene with the game. And it's impressive that I felt it was almost more impactful in the show, just with the silent moments and everything like that. And then I didn't even click in my brain, but someone had mentioned after the fact that whenever Sam's sitting on the bed and he's not doing anything, I was like, that's kind of weird. Why is he just sitting there? I was like, oh, he's deaf. Like he's not hearing anything. He's just like he's not hearing anything I mean, he could have got up and moved around, but he still wasn't in the writer's mind. He still wasn't like fully zombified or whatever. And so I was like, what an interesting idea to where he would just sit there because he's deaf and he can't, like, nothing's triggering him in a sense. But no, I thought this episode was absolutely incredible. The acting was absolutely incredible. I loved the scene. So the scenes there's a lot of like nods and like Easter eggs kind of in that super scene, which you might guess, but I love the interaction with Joel and Henry, because they really make Henry in just that gray area, which they don't in the game. They make him like, hey, I turned my friends in. Like I gave people up to save my brother. And it's like, I'm not a good guy. It's like, what an interesting turn to kind of add so much more to his character. So I love that. I love the interactions they had. I love when Joel apologized to him. He's like, hey, I take back what I said earlier and accusing you. I don't know your situation. Like, I thought it was really great character growth all the way around. And really, like, these two episodes are really what we needed to get Ellie and Joel where they're going.
Yeah.
And man, they did a freaking good job. So loved this episode.
Yeah,
Loved it.
I love the part where he was telling him like, I'm a bad guy. Henry's saying I'm a bad guy, but Joel could have been just like, I'm a bad guy too.
Yeah,
so
it's like,
Well, I'm a worse guy.
Yeah. The two things I didn't like about this episode, just little things. It didn't ruin it or anything for me. When they're walking in that cul-de-sac, that is like the brightest. Like there had to be like spotlights or something.
yeah, it was very bright.
That was so bright.
Forest fires, like.
I was like, did they shoot this day for night like in old movies? You see where it's actually day. They just tone down the. And then the bloater scene, it was kind of goofy. It was like. He like comes out and it's like, oh, it's the boss, the video game boss. So it's like that kind of took a little away from me. But go ahead, Alex.
Really fast. I've heard that because Ben felt the same way. He was like, "Oh, it's kind of cheesy to me." I was like, "Man, I don't know why I loved it so much. Just that kind of like, I don't know. I felt the fear of like Jared was saying at the beginning of when we were talking podcast. He was like, "There's got to be something that's invulnerable, right? Like something that's gone so far beyond." I was like, "Well, Jared, I don't know if Jared liked it in this episode, but he got it."
I did like they didn't kill it. Like,
I love it. I love they didn't kill it.
I liked it because it reminded me of like a Resident Evil bad guy.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
But sorry,
so what do you think, Alex?
I think this episode was very good. It's not my favorite, but it's really good. I have a lot of nitpicky things, but overall, yeah, I think it's really, really good. Before I forget, something I forgot to mention about episode 4, when they show at the end of the episode, like the ground moving in that room, hate that. That's so stupid.
Really?
It is so dumb to me. It looks like the end of like a CW episode where like monster is brewing underneath this floor. Like, what is that? What is happening there? I hate it.
To explain that would be because Fedra trapped them basically in the sewers.
I know.
Like they said they cleared them out, but they really just trapped them in areas.
And it
They're
feels
just
like
bunched all in one area. They probably did my guess is they did I haven't heard anything about this, but my guess is they would do like a cave in somewhere in the sewers, and they're just like stuck all in this one area, like caved in maybe on both sides or something like that.
So they're stuck there. They're able to move the floor and can't
I
get
mean,
through.
after like 2 weeks, maybe they finally broke through. I don't know. I'm just
I thought
I
that
thought it
was,
was like the fungi kind of woken up or something.
it looks
But
so.
it feels like they
Ugh.
only showed that just kind of to set up the scene in this
Yeah.
episode
Sure.
where that car gets sunk in there. But
I think there's so many better ways to do it. Like maybe they're like listening through a freaking sewer
Well,
drainage or something, or I don't know. But
my criticism of this terrible leader also is applying to that. Like, you know, we
We won't
this
worry about that.
massive, Yeah, we won't worry about that. We're just going to
Oh,
hunt down
yeah.
this one kid who's insignificant to everything else. But you know
Yeah.
what? We're going to leave this out. You know,
But that
'cause-
that could have worked, like Thomas was saying, if they got someone more threatening to play that character. Because a revenge story in the middle of a zombie apocalypse could totally work. You could totally see someone being
It's just,
so.
it's just how everybody else went along with it. Like, we
Yeah.
need to kill this kid. It's like,
Right, yeah.
that is a bigger
it's
threat.
like
right
we
now.
should
If you
probably
would've
shoot
had-
her.
Yeah, if you would have had like a very driven character that is just only motivated by revenge, doesn't care that zombies are happening, doesn't care about all this stuff, that could have worked. But just her character just kind of fell short of that. But
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Eddie.
You're good. Yeah, I just really hated that. It looked like a Goosebumps villain in the end of an episode or something. I was like, that looks so stupid. I love the addition of him being deaf. I don't like. Well, it's not that I don't like it. I feel like they're romanticizing everything in this show. And it takes away from the realism of the game, which it's funny that a game to me is more realistic than this show. Like it really is to me. Like I mean, it's so stupid of Ellie to like let that gamble that to me. And it's like, you know, Joel's in the other room, Henry's in the other room. It's like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of dumb, but
That's
also,
interesting. Like Michael, I like that scene, but I've heard a lot of people not.
Yeah, a
like
lot of people
that.
don't. And I mean, I don't know. I kind of justify in the sense of like she's hoping it works, and she knows what happens if she tells them. Like she knows what's going to happen, and she doesn't want that because they just spent this whole time bonding
Right.
and getting together. And like she's like, I know what happens, and I'm going to do what as much as I can until the last minute.
sure,
Because
but
I like how in the next episode she goes, I wanted to save him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was a good
yeah,
emotional point for her.
but it's like maybe tie him up, you know, take some precautionary
A
measures.
little bit of duct tape.
Oh,
Tuck him
anyway.
in real tight with his comforters so he can't move.
Well, and kind of like what I'm talking about with romanticizing everything in this show, like everything is romanticized. And I don't mean literally like romance. I mean, like, you know what I mean? And it's like in the game, from what I remember, and it's been a long time, but I was like, it's so abrupt. You don't see it coming. It's like, because it happens, right? That they're in a room together.
They're in a room together. They had the conversation where he asks if that question of do
Yeah.
you think they're still inside, and, whatever.
And
So
that's
they have that kind of
cool.
like heart-to-heart moment. Then it just cuts to Joel and Henry talking outside in front. They have like a little tiny canned campfire where they're making beans or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what's cool is because it's that's almost like a little bit foreshadowing, and when it happens in the scene, you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But in this, it's like everything's so. It just this
I-
the show feels like a really big fan of The Last of Us wrote a poem to me.
This is personal opinion.
Hey.
Like, I don't like. I'm not disregarding what you just said, Alex.
Mhm.
I see how that could be a lot more like awesome in the game, but I did like their back and forth with the little sketch pad
Mhm.
thing,
Yeah.
and waiting for what they're gonna say.
See, but I feel like you could still do that. Just don't make it reveal that he's bitten. Like,
Yeah.
it's just I would be really curious to see what you guys think about the game because the game is just so much more. Like desperate. Like everyone's just like it's just a terrible world. In this show, it's like it's a terrible world, but man, there's love all around, you know. And
Yeah, it's more optimistic.
Yeah, like-
that's
even Joel in the next episode, we'll get to that. But anyway, so let me finish my thoughts real quick on this. Yeah, I feel like the dialogue in the game is a lot more subtle. Joel's a lot more subtle in the game, in my opinion. Even though I really like Pedro Pascal, and I really like Bella Ramsey's Ellie. I've liked her from the beginning, but she's even getting better. But the dialogue between Henry and Joel, I really didn't like that dialogue. Like it was so on the nose, and like again, I think I'm just really picky about dialogue, and I'm not saying that I'm right. It's just I can't help the way I feel about it. Where like when he's talking, like that line where he's like, I'm a bad guy because I did a bad guy thing. I was like, I rolled my
Mm.
eyes. I was like, oh my God, that's such a bad line.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't. I know that they've been through a little bit together at this point, but in my opinion, they just don't speak this way. People rarely say what they mean. That's the whole point in subtext, because everybody, is a lot of times skirting around what they mean. There's a scene in the next episode with Joel where he says what he means, but it almost works better, even though I'm not necessarily crazy about the direction, but it almost works better because he's in an emotional moment.
Mhm.
And when you're in an emotional moment, you say what you mean, and it comes out almost cheesy sometimes because it's nobody. That's why like saying like I love you so much, like that can come across as cheesy because it feels unnatural. Nobody really speaks that way.
Hey man, I do that all the time.
Well, and that's what like I've been there. That's what emotional moments. That's why they can feel like a little cringe and cheesy because it's like
you also have to.
No one speaks this way.
You also have to put yourself in the sense of where the world has ended. Things are very, very different. It's not just, hey, mom, let's go have dinner and talk, and we're going to talk really dramatically and cheesy. Like this is two people they've run into in how long of a time that aren't trying to kill them, and like it's like say what you got to say while you can say it.
Hey, fair
Like
fair
we
point.
don't have time to skirt around and goof off here.
Fair point, but I feel like your point actually can go your way and my way, where it's like this world is messed up. People are way less trusting. Like, yeah, like I said, they've been through a little bit now, but it feels too early to me. It's like, yeah, and then the whole bad guy line, I just hated it. That's pretty much it. I liked it. Oh no, I'm sorry. This show does the whole zombie tropes thing, and I'm really disappointed with it because it's like whenever they show that truck fall in, and then it's like, why is it? Well, I think the zombies are like in drama class. They're so theatrical. They're like below, and they're like everyone shh. They all jump at the same time. You don't hear them. Like it would be way more realistic and scary if you heard like.
Yeah.
You hear a little bit, don't you?
No, I don't think so. I think I just watched it.
Did.
I just
It's
watched
pretty
it.
silent, yeah.
It's just like it, and I get it. It's theatrical because it's fiction. It's a show, and it works for that. But it breaks the immersion for me. And kind of the same thing happens with Sam. But Michael's point that he made about what they brought about him being deaf is actually a really good point. So I kind of take that one back because they did the whole zombie thing where it's like she's walking around him, and it's like, Wah! But him being deaf actually that makes that work. But and then the whole bloater scene, I totally agree, Joe. I thought that was cheesy. Like I was super excited to see it because I was like, the bloaters are awesome. But and I get that the game you can't really do the same thing, and they're not doing spores in this game. But in the game, they like throw these like almost like spore bombs at you, and it goes like, and it's all
Did
you're
you
like,
want him to do that?
kinda.
Pulls out a little satchel, he's like, that'll work.
I just feel like because even animals will like make traps and stuff. I feel like it could be interesting if you threw it, but I'm like, instead he's like going WWE on these people, like picking up this guy like, and then like, I don't know.
I think we needed that desperately in this episode, though. I think we did need some zombie
I freaking
action.
loved it.
I liked the way he looked. I just didn't like. He came out all intimidating, and he barely did.
He came out like the Scorpion King, yes. But it was much needed.
This Macho Man Randy Savage is like, you over there.
Anyway, but I wasn't crazy about that whole like zombie scene just because the tropes of zombies and also Ellie. Why did she run to that vehicle? That was the dumbest
That's
decision you can make. Let
She's
me
on
run
the window,
back
man.
across where all the danger is to maybe get in a vehicle that I have to get out of immediately. It's like, and she runs away from Henry and Sam. That didn't work for me either. Anyway, I've talked enough, so let's go.
One quick thing about this episode before we move on. That scene where Pedro's like helping Ellie with the sniping. That is such a video game, and I would hate that level if you had to do that because that'd be so stressful, just like protecting her while she's getting-
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I love that like that tension they build with the show though of him like he's like trying to get it, then he gets stuck that one point. You're like, come on, please get it.
Yeah, that was-
and just like the visuals of it looking down is like way more than the game. Like I said, there's just a few coming out, but like this is just insanity below him. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
That is cool.
Nice. And the last scene, man, so heartbreaking where they find the doodle pad and it's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Man, that just totally heartbreaking.
That-
And it's interesting because in the show there's a lot more. They skip 3 months, which they skip time in the show, but they don't you don't have happy Ellie that quickly. She's still pretty somber and silent for a while in the game. It takes a minute, but
yeah, makes
go on.
sense. Sorry, one last thing. When he shot himself, I didn't necessarily like the shot because one, I wish they either just straight up show it, or I wish that they had cut to Ellie sooner, because it feels when that happens, when he pulls a trigger and they change the shot, it feels a little bit like the show is covering your eyes like a parent would to me.
Yeah.
Whereas if like he points it up to his head and then they show Ellie and Ellie's like, no, and then you hear it, that could be really impactful. But it's like as soon as he pulls the trigger, it changes the shot. It just feels like Mom, get your hand out of my face. Like I'm old enough for this. But or like I said,
I agree though. Yeah, the
Yeah.
way it changes like perspective is
Yeah.
was a little jarring. Yeah.
Yeah, or like I said, just straight up show it, which could have been dope too.
Mhm.
I mean, they just showed him shoot the brother, so whatever. But anyway, sorry, that's it.
All right, so then we move on to episode 6, which was called Kin. And sadly, this was a big disappointment for me. Because they've been building up to Joel and his brother reuniting, and I think it just dropped the ball every way. So you meet Tommy, and he's just this whipped guy, but I guess that's what happens when you marry a communist.
That's why Joseph hates this episode.
They just take the masculinity out of you. But I hated the set piece of Wyoming because it looked like a Hallmark movie. Like it's Christmas time in Wyoming.
Have you even watched a Hallmark movie? Where do you get off,
It
Joseph?
looks way too utopic.
Santa's
it looks
Village.
totally fake. Yeah, it just looks so fake.
She
And
was
then
just a
it's-
lawyer in the big city. One day she moved to Montana.
Yeah.
for the love of her life.
Oh, also zombie apocalypse.
Also, zombie apocalypse. Watch
Oh.
out, they bite.
Oh man, she tried to change him and she was successful. What else did not like? This episode was all building up to kind of Joel's breakdown, which I thought was really good. But then 30 seconds later, he changed his mind. and I hated
yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
I
terrible.
agree.
Literally overnight.
Yeah.
I
It was just
agree.
like I would have loved to see Tommy actually take Ellie out, and then Joel have to have a reason to go out there and
Mhm. Yeah, I
get her
agree.
back. But yeah, that this episode was just a huge disappointment for me. So Thomas, why don't you give us your opinion?
I did like a lot of this episode. I think it did kind of slow down a little bit. We got that whole cutscene thing again, where they do this stuff and then they're back onto the road, that kind of stuff. I did like the look that Joel gave Tommy when he's like, it's basically communism. No, not really. It's like, we live in a commune. It's really communism. He's kind of like looks back like, what have you become?
And Tom-
that's such an older brother thing.
Well, and the look on Tommy's face is like, oh no.
I know.
It's like,
Well, then like he tries to give give Ellie a very brief version of communism v capitalism, and it's funny. He's just like, I don't. This is way too complicated for me to like talk about.
Mhm.
I kind of agree with Joseph. Like, it's too idyllic. There's not enough grime and grit. It's like, we protect this. I'm just like,
Yeah.
you're also in the open and everybody can see you. Like, surely somebody's like come across you. But they also all have the same rifles. What's that about? I did like the Graham Greene cameo we got at the beginning.
that was so funny.
They were great. I love them. It's like,
Oh.
are you telling me the truth?
The
Did you
older
tell him the
couple
truth?
in the cabin.
Oh, they were
Oh, yeah,
great.
they were
Oh,
awesome.
they were awesome.
so funny.
You tell him the truth? Yeah. Are you telling me the truth? Yeah. Okay. It's right.
Did you make him soup? Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold.
That was funny, but this show we've had we've had the girl from 2.5 Men, we have Ron Swanson, and now we get him. It's like this. It's just making me believe that this is some kind of weird alternate reality where sitcom stars survive the
Well,
apocalypse.
Chelsea, you're gonna get your dream of Cheers being sung, so shut up.
That better be the last episode.
Ted Danson shows
And
up.
Ted Danson just shows up like what? But yeah, it was a good episode. Like there was a lot of good dialogue in it, but part of it is just it felt kind of empty compared to the last one, and I think that's probably part of it is that we had like this emotional like high or low, whatever you want to call it, from the last episode, and then we get this one, which is basically a the setting of a Hallmark movie is like how Joseph said it. The last scene when they're in the college or whatever, I liked that
Yeah.
part. It was like, oh yeah, like this is The Last of Us. This is how it's supposed to be. But yeah, it was a very middle of the road episode for me. I did like the reunion that they had where they had the what do you call it? The whiskey. It's like, you know what? We're gonna have bacon pretty soon. It's like, wow, whiskey and bacon. Must be nice.
What else could you want?
Yeah.
But then again, Ellie reverts back to her annoying side. I didn't enjoy that when they're
That
like,
was a little abrasive though when
Yeah.
they're at the table. I'm just
Yeah.
like, there's no
I think that was too much.
There was no reason for you to be that rude. Like you're not stupid. Like you know what tact is.
The explanation, which I still don't agree with, is like after she sees, because like in this episode, the writer was talking about how certain points Joel was feeling jealous, and then at that point Ellie, because it shows Joel, he like exasperately, like extremely greets Tommy, like Tommy yells his name, and then it shows a shot of Ellie, and she's like,
Yeah,
wait, hold
she's
on,
jealous,
no, like
yeah.
he's mine, like we're that team, and so that's where that kind of plays in. But I didn't agree with it. I thought it would have been more fitting for her to be more gracious that she's eating a good meal.
yeah, you think she'd be excited to meet his brother.
His brother,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or if she is jealous, could have been cool if she's just more quiet. Like just
Yeah.
like, oh, is this like, introducing a whole other side to our dynamic now? And that could have been interesting. But
Also, what movie were they watching? I know that was
Oh, I don't know.
freaking
Troy said the name. It was it's some romantic comedy from like 1970 something.
Well, it had
Oh.
what's his face? Mr.
Darn.
Holland's Opus. I forgot his name.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss, yeah. I'm like, I've never seen this movie, and I've seen a lot of his movies. I
Yeah,
thought
I
it was
don't-
I
I
thought it was
didn't
Close
notice.
Encounters for a bit. Because like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting to watch, but it wasn't that. I was like, I don't know. All right, let's go to Alex. What do you got?
The movie was The Goodbye Girl,
Oh,
1977.
that makes sense.
A little on the nose there, showrunner.
Yeah.
Well, so is the song at the end. If you
That is
listen to
true.
that.
I actually did like that song more than I did like
Fun
the one
fact:
before that.
that song, Craig Mazin asked his daughter to cover that song. He was like, "Hey, I want you to do this and think of this while you sing," and he gave it to her. And it was like,
They
so it's his
did
daughter.
that, or that Hank Williams song is now super popular on Spotify.
Not surprising.
he's
So I
like,
was just like, because I have Hank Williams on my playlist, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Hank Williams. And then that starts playing. I'm like, why is this on the rotation? Because it's not a very popular Hank Williams song.
Oh, it is now.
It is now. All right, Alex, go for it.
he's like, daughter, sing this, and I want you to slow it down and make it all dark and piss off the Arianos.
That's
Um,
basically what he said to her, except without the,
No, he still called me out.
So, we have the text, yeah. Specifically, Jared.
This is one of my favorite episodes, actually, personally, but it's because it reminds me of what I like about the game. Like there's that scene that's straight out of the game with, her reading the diary in that room and then yelling at him like, everyone effing except for you. That's just straight out of the game. Which, interesting fact, Ashley Johnson, who played Ellie in the game, was supposed to just say that line like normal. But in the moment, she got caught up in the moment and shoved him and added like effing into it. And so they kept that in the game because it just hit harder. Like, because, Troy in the game wasn't expecting it. And, so they added it to the show, which I thought was neat. And I just like how it builds the dynamic because I totally get what Tom was saying about like zombies and stuff. That's what a lot of people go to zombie stuff for. But I've said multiple times, like I don't care about zombies in this. I mean, they're cooler than a lot of zombies because they're more unique. But in general, I kind of just don't care about zombies in anything. In Walking Dead, they're the least interesting part of the show. In The Last of Us, I literally think they're the least interesting part about it, even though I think they're cooler than normal zombies.
And I like the pace of which they're spreading out because it does keep that when they do come, they make an impact and
Sure.
Yeah.
weird. Like it's not just all the time, and you don't get used to it, which I like.
Yeah, we've got Grandma Zombie, we've got Sumo Wrestler Zombie in the last episode. So what are we gonna get next? But
Oh, we had that little kid zombie.
oh yeah, that did not work for me. It looked fake. Like
Contortionist
it was
zombie.
like slapping her in the face while I was on
Yeah.
her. I was like, this looks so weird. And she died like such a lame way. Like I just wish she wasn't in this show. Anyway, so yeah, so like I was saying, the game is a little bit more subtle. Like so, Joel, I liked Joel in this a lot. Like it was interesting. It is different than the game from when, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but from what I remember,
very, very different.
he's not. There isn't this theme of him messing up a million times. That seems to be in the show. And it might be in the game, but that's what I like about the game is the game is just more subtle. It's it's crazy.
It's also just spread out so much
Sure,
more
sure.
because like in the show they're building it up to the end of the series. Whenever in the show you're like, oh, this happens, then we do all this stuff, then this happens, then
Yeah,
bunch of time.
but like, and I get it. Yeah, you have a lot more time in the game, but it's so funny to me that a game is more subtle. Like it's just so backwards from normal. But like I mean, I'm telling you guys, like Troy's Joel and Ashley Johnson's Ellie are so much more subtle in the game. It's like, and Joel's struggles are so like under the surface. And I didn't dislike this. This was interesting. Like Joel has this kind of breaking point, whereas in the game he doesn't. And in the game, it's almost just like he's brushing her off because he did what he had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I feel like he's afraid of this father-daughter relationship that's growing in the game and in the show too. But in the game, he's just like, it's almost like a relief from the fear of how close he can get to her. It's like, here, you can, oh good, yeah. You'll be safer with these people. Like they'll get you where you need to go because I'm afraid of growing close to you. That's what I got from the game. And in this, it's that, but it's almost like he's afraid of failing someone else, and there's none of this like him like getting slower reactions and stuff in the game, which that's fine with the show. He's older and stuff, and they're bringing in some interesting like almost like PTSD and panic attacks coming up, and so I'm fine with it. I really am, but I do like I think the game is more powerful where it's like it feels more real, more human thing to do, where it's like he's taking the coward's way out. It's like in the show, it is almost like he is almost doing the right thing, where he's like, I'm not really necessarily capable of doing this because I'm falling apart. But in the game, that's why I like the game, because his character has that more depth where it is a coward's way out for him. And it's so good. But that being said,
I think you mentioned before that Tommy's not in the first game. Is that what you said?
no, he is. He is.
Oh,
You
he
meet
is.
him in this.
So
I'll explain the scenario in a minute.
Okay.
We might have mentioned that they're different because they're white in the game, but I don't know why, but that would make a difference. But anyway,
I was saying that like Tommy wasn't in the beginning of the show. Whenever Tommy
Yeah.
never sent radio
Oh.
messages, they didn't communicate at all. That's what Tommy wasn't a part of. You don't really hear about Tommy until like they get over there
yeah,
and they realize the Fireflies aren't somewhere. Like, oh well, Tommy used to be part of them. We'll go ask him. Basically, is what the plan is in the game.
right.
So I was interested where he was taking Ellie at this point, if he wasn't taking her to Tommy in the game.
Yeah. He does take her to Tommy, and Tommy basically comes up with this plan to take her, right?
It's I'll go and explain it now. So basically, the show is very different. So Jackson, where they are, that's in Last of Us 2. That's not Last of Us 1 at all. They never actually make it there.
That's the place that Last of Us 2 starts, because I was thinking
that is the beginning of Last of Us 2.
I was thinking that I was
town.
like, this is just like the Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
Okay. Cool.
So in the game, Tommy and his crew and all of them are at the dam. They're trying to fix the dam to get power for Jackson. So Jackson's not really built up yet. I'm assuming not looking. It looks that nice in Last of Us 2, but Last of Us 2 has a big time jump.
They haven't got the target yet.
Yeah, they didn't get the target sign up, the spotted dog. No, so basically they get there, and Joel's like, hey, we need to go to we're trying to find the fireflies that he's kind of tell the story up to that point in certain ways, and Ellie does go off with his girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever it is in the game, I don't remember, but you don't see any of that. But what happens in what I like this episode a lot, but I like the game's pacing of it more, of how they deal with it. Because basically Ellie overhears Joel asking Tommy to take her, and she gets really like hurt and pissed, takes a horse and literally runs, like she leaves. And so they end up trying to chase her down through all these woods and everything. They end up finding her in basically that identical house that he finds her reading the diary in. And it's kind of like that moment of, after that, it has this long path to reach there, and it gives you that time to breathe for Joel to change his mind. Go ahead, Thomas.
So I don't know if I just completely blacked out and didn't see that. For the show, Ellie like overhears Tommy and Joel talking.
Yeah,
about
they
it,
didn't
and
show
they-
it.
It's not
and
clear.
they did not show it.
They
I was
didn't
just
show
like,
it.
So what
did I
they
miss something?
what they did,
What's
she's
going
watching the
on?
movie and she's kind of like looking around, like I wonder where Joel is, and they almost
I got
insinuate.
that, but she just like walks down the street. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Yeah,
it's
you-
not
okay.
clear.
It's kind of an insinuation that's where she was going. It was weird
Yeah.
not to show her actually hearing it.
Yeah.
yeah.
very
but-
strange.
But yeah,
Well,
so
I thought it was like on my part. I'm like, did I just like pass out
No,
for a second?
that's not you.
What's going on?
But yeah, so in the game, I like that effect of her more like almost having like an emotional breakdown and just taking that horse and running from that group that they're in at the dam, whatever, and they end up finding her in the house. And that scene where they have that diary dialogue and she pushed up to him is like 1-to-1 with the game. And I think they did an incredible job with that in the show.
It's
There's a
su-
few line changes, but it was still, I thought, really, really good. What's up?
Me.
Yeah,
Are you done with your
couldn't-
full explanation? Sorry.
I think so, basically.
Okay.
But I
just of
got,
that
like,
scene, I mean.
just that they the way it's paced out, and they give it way more time for Joel, because Joel's like in the show, they're not really like this is still quiet Ellie, like I said. Like they're walking up the dam, Ellie's quiet, she's up, still very, very upset about Sam. Like they're not talking, they're not buddies. And so he's like, hey, this is kind of the end of the line, it's a good place for us to part. Tommy, you can take her because you know the fireflies. They're not gonna. They don't know me. Why would they talk to me? They know you. Here's the situation. You take her. You go. Ellie, here's that. Gets pissed. She's like, why would you leave me? And that line. Oh my god. Everyone has left me, either died or left me. Everyone except for you. Like it's still such a good line. Anyway, but
As soon as he was walking up to that door, I was like, "Oh, this is that scene." I could picture that little like bookshelf window thing or that lounging area. I was like, "Oh, here we go!" And then it's just like in the game, so that's great. But to clarify, Joe, I don't know. This might not be what you're asking, but Tommy in the game, like Michael's saying, he's not a part of like the radio and stuff, but he is in the intro, like the pre-pandemic
yeah.
thing. It's very similar to the show, but
Okay.
one of the last things I can think of to say is that like you, Joe, I think that Joel's like change of heart is so abrupt and so strange. Like
Hmm.
I was like, you just got rid of all the like tension you just built, and
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. What your idea is way better, because I don't know, it was very strange.
It's just like there's this weird amateurish streak that goes with this show. Like, if she does not kill someone with that cup, the minstrel cup she finds, that's just a totally wasted like scene. You have to use that at some point. But it's just there's this weird amateurish link that goes throughout the show. It's like just baffling. It's like, why did you do that? Basic story tells you to do this, this, and this. And you guys are kind of going against that. But I'm sorry. This episode really rubbed me wrong. But keep
So,
going.
quick nitpicky, not nitpicky, but so every actor on this show has apparently been given the talk of trigger discipline. Nobody, and I'm talking nobody on this show, has their finger on the trigger.
yeah,
Oh,
When they're pointing a gun at somebody. I'm just like, okay, so that Alec Baldwin thing really resonated with people, didn't it? Because like the whole thing, Ellie's like has it on the
Yeah.
side, Joel has it on the side, the Sergeant Santa Claus has it on the side. Even like the woman like takes it out and goes like this. I'm just like, that's kind of weird to see in a movie or a show now, because it used to be like, yeah, just do it,
Mhm.
kill him. I'm just like,
It's like all the guns are actually CG. Like they're like moving around in their hand. Like,
It was like someone gave like a really big safety brief. He's like, we are not going to have any incidents on this set.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they kind of cut down on the gun violence in this show. Just like, I don't know, just like video games, you're used to seeing people just unload on people. And this one, they're very just like sparse with the gunfire.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's really been an issue for me yet. But Alex, were you done, or do you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll probably chime in, but I'm good.
Okay, but let's go to Jared. I'm interested to see what he thought of this episode.
So I didn't think I had to defend myself. This is my favorite episode so
Oh.
far.
Hey, Jared, that's my boy.
I'll say why. There's a lot of good information in this episode. I did like how I mentioned before, like how Joel's getting deaf. I kind of like that. Like he's starting to see wear and tear on his body and like how he might not be able to do this. And then when he breaks out with his brother, he like tells him like, "Hey, dude, I can't hear. Someone got a slip on us because of that." I enjoyed that. I'm not gonna lie. I know it's probably not like the game, like Alex was saying, but I enjoyed it.
Well, that
It
even
was a
goes
nice
back
twist.
to when he was talking to Ellie. She's like, "Is that from you getting shot?" He's like, "More like me shooting
Doing
Yeah.
the
when I'm
shooting. Yeah.
deaf in this one ear."
I thought this episode brought a lot out of Joel that I was wanting. I thought it was a really good episode for him. Side note, real quick, there was a lot of scenes where he looked like my dad, and I was like, "This is weird." Like, because he has the
Interesting.
same kind of graying in his hair, and he had like the same
Yeah.
kind of jacket he would wear. But I was like, "Huh."
Nice jacket too.
Anyway, once Joseph said the Hallmark thing, I was like, but in my head when I was watching it, like I thought that was the place. Like when we were seeing the first trailers for the second one, there was like the lights and like this big like
Uh-huh.
almost like campground. I thought that's what that was supposed to be. I don't know if it was, but
Yeah.
I
it
thought they were
is.
just alluding to that. But like that scene with Joel and Ellie, like you guys talked about, I thought that was a great scene. You finally see them actually address some of their emotions. Like what I got from Joel in this episode was like he's afraid because he's starting to have feelings for Ellie and he doesn't want to lose someone else. And I thought that was conveyed well, and I liked it. Like he's finally broken or opened up a little bit. And then Ellie, that was the one time where she isn't just some annoying kid. She's like, everyone in my life that I've cared about has died. So like, this is why I'm like this. Like, I enjoyed that quite a bit in this episode. It flushed out a lot of stuff with them. Yeah, even I was like, man, he really just changed his mind in like 2 hours. But I don't know. I guess they could have let that linger for an episode or two, and like Joseph was saying, he could have like met up with them like halfway. My only nitpicky thing in this episode were the baboons. Like they would not just scurry away from it.
I knew it. I knew it when the
I was
monkeys
like-
ran off. I'm like, Jared's gonna hate this.
I was like, no humans, they would have attacked them like crazy. But
They would have grabbed Ellie and left.
and then I liked exactly. And
Just like in the
I like-
Jungle Book.
Yeah.
I like the scene with them at the campfire, and she's like, "Hey, can I get a swig of that?" And he's like,
Oh yeah.
"Why? There's no reason not to." So he lets her have it. And she's like, "Yep, still terrible," like a kid would, because it's just bitter and gross.
That cave looked a little weird though. It looked like
Yeah.
Yeah.
something you'd see in like old episodes of Star Trek. It's like they cut out a cave.
Yeah, but
Corns in the background. It's like,
I did like seeing them. Oh, go ahead.
I was making a stupid joke, but I was like, he hands her the drink, and then To Catch a Predator comes around the corner. I was like-
Steve
Chris
Hansen.
Hansen, what are you doing here?
Chris Hansen. Sorry, Chris Hansen.
But I like seeing them starting to open up to each other. And then the whole Colorado scene I thought was cool. Just them walking in, he's kind of giving her more information about how life used to be. He was a contractor and she thinks that's cool. And like no contractor before this thought they were cool, but you
I
can see he's like, yeah, it
that's
was
so funny.
Like,
Everybody
he's
loved
kind of like
us.
Liar.
talking it up. But no, I like seeing them getting closer together. And then like Oh, that's another nitpicky thing. He just tried to pawn Ellie off on Tommy because he knows he's not as careful or he's not as um, capable, and then he immediately gets stabbed in the next like tussle. Like you think he'd be a little bit more careful or something like that, but I mean, it's a fight. There's no way you can like prepare yourself for that. But it was just like right after that scene, you're like, "Oh, come on, Joel!"
I was like, "Oh my god, he stabbed him with a bat!" Because I thought it was
Yeah, it's a thick handle.
Well, and he pulls it out. I was like, don't
do that. Oh.
Yeah, he probably knew not to do that. I was like, "What are you doing?" But to leave it at that, to leave the episode on him just falling off the horse, and she's like, "Please, I can't do this without you."
Yeah, that
She's
was-
opened up even more. I was
So
like, "That's
good.
great." So I really liked the emotions in this episode. I thought it was a great in between episode.
Very nice. I'll finish off on my thoughts apart from me recapping of it. I loved the intro of this episode. I loved the fact that they redid the Henry suicide and then cut to black, because that's straight out of the video game. Like each time these emotional or some sort of segment ends, they cut to black, and then it's either a time jump, which it usually is, or like a whole season jump towards like, oh, we're in fall now, winter, whatever. So I love that they started with that. And like I said, like as different as this episode is, I definitely did very much enjoy this episode. I like the changes. I feel like it fits Joel, I say, like with his age and like his disabilities we've seen, and like him not being this action hero that he is in the game. I liked the fact that, he starts having these panic attacks and he's freaking out about it. He's like he, recounts to Tommy everything. I failed here. I failed here. I failed here. I failed here. I do not want to fail again. I need someone to take over. I can't do this. And I can't emotionally handle this. I can't physically handle this. I thought it was very, very powerful. It was a frustrating episode though, too, with like the you're just like, get along, work together and talk, you morons.
I kind of actually liked that. It was like
I
he didn't
liked
get the
it, but it was
reunion he
also-
wanted. Yeah.
It's like that intended frustration. Is what I
Yeah.
mean, like it's like, come on, please, just gosh, which is very much like the game because they have these arguments in the game. But yeah, it was interesting going to Jacksonville because it's like, I don't know if it's called, I think it's called Jacksonville. Jacksonville. Just
Howdy,
Jackson.
partner.
Okay.
Or howdy,
Jacksonville's in
stranger. Welcome
Florida.
to
Yeah, it's in
Jackson.
Oh yeah. It's very interesting because it's so much like there's a cameo. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. There's a cameo of someone who's in the second game that you saw in this sequence of this episode, and you're like, oh man, this is so weird to delve in and see more of like this kind of like past version of this. Even though, like I said, like I'm pretty sure it was like more dilapidated, not built up like this at this point in time in the game, but. I very much like characters. I very much like Tommy's wife's character. I like at first I was like, oh, you're kind of, but then she, like the more she built and like how she treated Ellie and like kind of took that motherly figure role. And I loved how because in the game you don't know how Ellie finds out about Sarah, but to have that kind of memorial of her son and then Sarah that Tommy had made above their fireplace. I'm like, what a emotional touch to have that still up there after all this time, and like that kind of impact of her being like, oh, I'm sorry about your kids. She's like, no, just one of those was mine, the other one's Joel's. And
Is
you're
that
like, oh.
how Ellie found out in the game?
Yeah, no,
'Cause-
you don't know. Like she takes Ellie off and then she comes back and she knows about Sarah.
Oh, that's so cool.
You don't know how. You just know that she told her at some point.
Yeah, I loved that in this episode though. I was like, that's such a
Yeah.
brilliant way to be like, oh no, that's Joel's daughter, and then it's just like, oh yeah, maybe he didn't want me to say that because you clearly look like you're surprised.
Yeah.
That's so
But
good.
and I couldn't help but laugh at the weird little female tool, like, and she's like, how
Minstrel
weird, and she's just like, I was laughing so hard. So I definitely did like this episode. I agree, just the building of Joel and like seeing his emotional side, and like the performance was great by him, dude. He said all of them really did a great job, but him and
Yeah.
Ellie, especially in this episode, just really knocked out of the park, especially with that just iconic line of them after the diary is so good. As with him changing his mind, it's kind of, for me, it's just like it had to happen because there are very important moments we have to get to in these last 3 episodes. So him changing his mind, I did find it very charming of his line during that. So they come out and he's like, I came out here to steal a horse, and that was 30 minutes ago. He's been sitting there thinking, like freaking out the whole time of like, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? And I found that very charming and a good way to kind of like, hey, we got to do this. And I'm like, I accept it. The big nitpick of it's not. I'm struggling with this on this one because they go to the university and there are some things like the giraffe scene you don't see, and that is at that point in the game, right? Pretty sure giraffe scene's here. I can't remember. Anyway,
I was
maybe that's
curious,
later on.
yeah, if they were going to do that or not, but I guess no.
I thought the
Maybe-
draft scene
maybe-
was in KC, wasn't it?
Well, they didn't
It
go
had
to
be a-
Kansas
it has
City
to
in
be
the
a
game.
zoo.
They don't go to Kansas City in the game.
No, the draft. Never mind. That's later. That hasn't happened yet. I apologize. We'll draw that
do
back.
they?
But my disappointment in this episode is so it plays out very much like the game to where they get to that one science room and the monkeys are making noise and they're freaking out and then they take off and they find out people are there and it turns the whole game scenario of you going all the way back down through the building trying to escape. And I knew they couldn't do that, but the impact. So in the game, how he gets stabbed is he's on a balcony and he's fighting a dude after they'd shot a bunch of people and they end up breaking the glass balcony and they fall back and he lands on a rebar pole that sticks through his back. And so you literally have to pull yourself off and then you're limping out of the place. And I was waiting for that punch. And so whenever it just kind of was silent and he looks down, I was like, I don't know if it was just my shock, so I need to rewatch it because I was waiting for this just slam. And I know a video game, he doesn't need to drop from a 2-story building. He could just be slammed to a wall and have that hit or something like that. But I was waiting so much for this punch because I find that very in that game is such an impactful moment of like, oh crap.
Literally.
That's a massive issue in this world and in this point in our story. And so and just having that kind of slow look down thing, I feel like one, it's been done plenty of times. I feel like it would have been a much more I don't know, just that kind of jolt and shock that HBO is good at with their shows to have it just impactful and more actiony. But I need to rewatch it. I do, like you guys said, I love that last scene where it's very straight up the video game. He falls off the horse. She gets down there and she's like, I can't do I don't know what to do. What the heck am I doing out here? And that song starts playing. But yeah, I definitely did very much like this episode. But just that one bit I was waiting for. But anyway. Except for the next episode, dude.
Dude, I'm not. I'm dreading this episode so much.
Why?
It looks
Ellie
like
focus?
that episode of Stranger Things where it's Ellie and that one chick. Remember that in season 2?
Oh, really? I didn't watch the
no.
preview for the.
This is not going to be that.
Yeah, it looks like that, and I'm just dreading that so much. It's
I didn't watch the preview, so I didn't see exactly what it all is. But I mean, if it goes according to the game, it'd be an interesting ride. But
I think this next episode is going to be if it's what I'm thinking, it's going to be awesome.
It makes sense that they're going to this right after Joel got to give you a little cliffhanger of is he alive or is he not?
Yeah.
So the next episode is the flashback.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's going to be
sense.
I imagine it's going to be showing Ellie dealing with Joel being out of commission and then flashing back.
I don't get that sense though. Maybe you're right. I hope you're right.
I hope I have no idea.
The only thing I get, because Johnny was bringing that up, I didn't forget he brought that up. He was talking about that that he thought that was the next episode. The only thing I can't see them splitting this episode into flashback and then halfway through the episode cutting to now is because they have to finish the season or the show in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And I feel like you
after
can't do that in one. You cannot do this ending in one episode, in my opinion. I mean, you could, but I feel like it needs 2 episodes to breathe.
Wait, Michael.
Stressed them out, Joel. So you stressed them out.
Michael, this next episode is the 7th one.
I know.
So then there's
Yeah,
2
you got
after
3
that.
episodes
So
left.
this episode can't be a full flashback, in my opinion, because there's too much to get to. But
I get
I
what
don't
he's
know.
saying. It's kind
I
of
don't
like
know.
a waste to use this whole
Oh, I
episode on a
hope not.
flashback.
Please no.
I could see this be half flashback than you.
That's what I'm
cut to
saying.
Now
I feel like that's going to be the
I
case.
hope so
Because
I
it's
hope
going to
so.
show her with her struggle of what's happening, and then maybe little triggers that remind her of what happened.
Yeah,
And then bounce
That's
I
it.
into
I have
I've
no
got
idea.
a bad feeling. I just have a real bad feeling.
It's like Han
I
Solo
didn't
over
think about
here.
that. It's gonna be interesting. I don't know.
Got a bad
So maybe he
feeling.
dies. Maybe he just dies.
They changed the whole thing.
Yeah. That'd be
Um,
sad. I wouldn't like that. Go ahead.
Johnny's girlfriend the whole time was just like, "Is he dead? Does he die?" No one would answer her. She's like, "Guys, does he die?" I'm not telling you.
We'll have to find out. One last nitpicky thing. I kind of hate it when they do some things where when Joel is on his bed about to he's thinking
doing
about
on his bed?
he's thinking about Sarah. And then they show
Oh,
the
yeah.
little literal flashbacks that literally
yeah.
fade in and out. And I was like, that looks so cheesy. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't remember this.
It would have been more impactful if he was just looking at his watch or something on the bed.
Exactly. I was gonna say that, or looking at maybe a photo he had in his wallet of hers that's slowly fading, which is could have been so, funnily enough, romanticized and poetic. Where it's the photos fading with his memory of her, and it could have been so cool.
Yeah.
But it's just like literal footage
Yeah,
of her that literally fades back over his face. I'm like, this looks so stupid.
It's the amateur streak
Yeah,
talking
I'm
about.
not disagreeing with you,
Sure.
dude. Like, I'm not. There's certainly things that I'm not liking, but especially after, because I'm with Jared. Like, either this one or the very first episode is my favorite, and especially because the first episode was so strong that. But I am enjoying it. It's just not what I wanted it to be necessarily, but it's very good still.
Well, that was an interesting talk. I like that.
It was.
So we were talking before the podcast. We'll probably do 2 more episodes, review those, and then do the finale on its own. So definitely subscribe and get notifications so you guys can catch up with or keep up with us. Not catch up with us. We're behind you, but but yeah. Just if you want more good stuff, you gotta subscribe, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.